about 630 to 720 million people, they do go to bed hungry. And that's a big thing. And Africa, it's not even excluded into that. Actually, Africa play a bigger role into that population. So if you think about it, if we look at Africa, we're still struggling in terms of poverty. We're still struggling in terms of malnutrition. Although some they could have food, but it's not nutritious food that would make you being healthy. And that's a biggest problem within the African context. If you look at agriculture, South Africa has a vast of land, isn't it?
Yes.
So how best do we utilize that as the university? How best do we teach you? Do we teach these youngsters that agriculture is the way to go? If we really want to grow our economy, really, if we really pull it up, let's look at what's happening in China. You go in every province in China. Let's go to Shandong, where they have greenhouses everywhere in the whole province.
In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or position of this channel, its hosts, or affiliates. This podcast is a platform for open discussions and exploration of various perspectives, including controversial and unconventional ideas. We encourage viewers to think critically, do their own research, and form their own opinions. The content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as fact, advice, or an endorsement of any specific viewpoint. Viewers' discretion is advised. This episode is brought to you by the University of South Africa.
MOYA Ulight, MOYA Upright. Welcome to another episode of MOYA Podcast. As you know, we are working with the University of South Africa to see some of the courses that they offer, the things that they do. I know we never hear about it, so we just thought that let's create this platform so that you guys know what to go study. You need to understand the industries that you want to go into and see what projects UNISA is up to. We've got Professor Mapholi, who's going to sit and talk to us about the new farm that UNISA has just bought. Dumela first. Thank you for joining us. So, Niti, you bought first, who are you in the scheme of the farm?
Okay. So myself, I'm Professor Mapholi. I'm the Acting Executive Dean at the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. The College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, it focuses in all the agriculture and natural sciences. So that is why you would see that we need to have a farm. But myself, my specialty is in genomics. So I actually look into how best do we improve our livestock, how best to improve the crops to be able to produce more in terms of agriculture. So then I use genomics as a practice for that. But for us now as the university, we decided that how do we really play a role in our country, especially if we look at the national development plans and how best do we zero the hunger within the African continent. And that comes with the training, and the university is the best platform for us for training. And so that is why UNISA felt it suits for us to be able to buy the farm, and so that we can also produce graduates that are of good quality, because then they get opportunities to be practiced within the farm. So that is why now UNISA have the experimental farm. It's just close to Brongerspruit, and it's about 760 hectares. It's up and running.
So before we even get to the farm, I need to understand the importance, because for you to purchase a farm, it would mean that food security is important. Can we unpack that so that the people on the ground understand why a university would have to buy a farm, and what are you trying to teach us?
So if we just look at what's happening now in 2025 in South Africa, the G20 roundtable discussions that are happening, food security is one of the themes. that we need to look into. And if you look at globally, you look at about 630 to 720 million people that do go to bed hungry. And that's a big thing. And Africa, it's not even excluded into that. Actually, Africa play a bigger role into that population. So if you think about it, if we look at Africa, we're still struggling in terms of poverty. We're still struggling in terms of malnutrition. Although some, they could have food, but it's not nutritious food that would make you being healthy. And that's a biggest problem within the African context and within the Africa that we want, the Agenda 2063, and which is, it fits into the SDGs, the zero hunger. How do we zero hunger Africa? How do we zero hunger South Africa? And I think that's where UNISA is coming into that. Although we have the agricultural platform spaces that when we look into food security, we like, how do we play a role as a university? UNISA has been actually being into pioneer in terms of agriculture, but in terms of open distance learning. But we never had an opportunity to make it live as a face-to-face in a way that we could actually train our students in the farm physically and be able to have a proper qualification and quality of that qualification that allows them not just to be job seekers, but to be the entrepreneur. And also, we want also students or South Africa community, the young generation, embrace agriculture. If you look at agriculture, South Africa has a vast of land, isn't it?
Yes.
So how best do we utilize that as the university? How best do we teach you? Do we teach these youngsters that agriculture is the way to go? If we really want to grow our economy, really, if we really pull it up, let's look at what what's happening in China. You go in every province in China. Let's go to Shandong, where they have the greenhouses everywhere in the whole province. You know, you don't see a space empty. How do we do that here? We have the land. How do we then train them? University is the first point platform that we need to look into. So that's why we're coming as UNISA. We're saying, yes, we're hearing the Minister of Agriculture saying, how do we overcome our challenges? How do we make sure that we are producing enough? How do we come the world expect in terms of the export issues? We cannot be importing while we have the space in agriculture. So that's why UNISA is saying, yes, there is a role that we can play as a university. And for us to play that role, we have to start with the quality of education that we're giving. So buying the farm, it was to provide the adequate training centers. And also on the other hand, we want to say, maybe we haven't given so much thought in the school of thought in terms of research. How do we research and how do we be relevant to the industry? Because it's so easy for us as academics to come up with the topics for me to study and finish my work, isn't it? But I don't have to make an impact. But we need somebody who wants to make an impact. We cannot be studying something that we cannot utilize. It has to be solution-driven issues. So then we are saying, we want to bridge the gap between institution of higher learning and the industry. We want to put a training model within the farm to be able to resolve the issues of food security. How do we protect our biodiversity? I mean, if you look at Africa, you look at the vast, we really are so rich in biodiversity. Who are exploring this biodiversity is the outside continents. But we're here. When do we start to put our own infrastructure? When do we start to build our own capacity? So that's why UNISA is saying we're building this platform so that we train better, so that we research better. Let it become one of the centers in Africa that everybody could say that we can learn and we can reduce this issue of a hunger. We can, everybody at their backyard, be able to have their garden, that at least you don't have to buy a spinach. Imagine if you and me, we don't have to buy spinach. I mean, at the backyard of our garden, the top roof. I mean, if you're staying in the flat, what prohibits you to put at the top roof as a spinach kind of a garden? Nothing. It just needs us to be innovative and do things in a way that we can overcome the poverty. South Africa is very rich in agriculture. It's very rich. If we're to utilize the minerals we have, the agriculture space that we have, we should not be a country that is actually begging any other country. So that's where UNISA is saying, here is the thing. We're buying this farm. So now we bought the farm. And then we're saying, this is where we're starting industry.
So how do you convince the youth now to get into farming and agriculture? Because for them, I'm sure it's like, oh no, my God.
I don't want to be dirty.
Yeah, I'm at 2000.
I know everyone's like, I don't want to be dirty. I mean,
Yes.
I remember I didn't really do agriculture because of choice, I can tell you. So when I started to do it, I was like, really, I have to go to the farm and I have to spend my 6 months in the farm and be training. But agriculture space is no longer like that. We're moving into the AI space. We talk about digitization, most of the things, isn't it? So if you look at the agriculture now, you could actually be an innovator and actually be able to come up with a model that improve agriculture when you are sitting in your laptop. When you get my
I
point.
get you.
So it's no longer
get
a
you.
space where how hard is the labor. You know, you're thinking about labor work and you're
Yes.
like, do I want to go there as a youngsters? But again, you need to really think this way. I see youngsters playing with the apps.
Yes.
And so easy
Yes.
for them to design an app that could
Yes.
make us to use water efficiently. Agriculture needs water.
Ish.
And we don't want to just water everything.
Yes.
We don't want to water every time.
Yes.
So if you do BSc, and then you actually be into the space of BSc in agriculture, and you develop the app, you're not doing a hard labor, isn't it?
Yes. There's different ways.
There's different ways.
Yes.
There is, if you go, you study the Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, I can assure you there's different ways how you can maneuver in this space. But the question is, do you want somebody to always sell something that's not tasty, it's not palatable enough, and that's not healthy for you to buy? Or do you want to actually transform your own country,
Right.
your own nation, and plant a cabbage that is of nutritious, that is here? It's actually indigenous. And we always talk about mopane worms. People talk
Yes,
about
yes.
these days talking about maybe we should grind them and make it as a protein shake and things like that because it's high in protein, isn't it? But does it need somebody to go every day and pull up the mopane worms? Yes. As a professional person, you can open a company that you can innovate and come up with the better ways on how to do that. We're talking about amarula. You see so many drinks of amarula out now. The amarula juice, UNISA is doing that with the communities because they want the communities to actually produce the amarula juice themselves because it's the plants that we have. So young generations, they don't need to go to school and wait for the office space. It's not the case. They need to become entrepreneurs, innovators. And then so that when you think about agriculture, it should be, I see that these people in this village, they are producing so much maize, but they're struggling to sell it. How do I assist them as the youngsters? I bring them market opportunities, isn't it? So there's so many ways that you can go and advocate for this market, and so that we can be able to improve even the communities that we have. So it should not be like a rocket science for you to be an agricultural scientist. You can do it in so many ways and play your role in this space. So either you want to be, a bioinformatics. We were talking about things like
Bioinformatics for those of us who are
So in previously, within CAIS, we do a lot in terms of drug discoveries. We do a lot in terms of biotechnologies now, looking at the medicinal plants, looking at how best we extract some compounds that are much useful, that we can do drugs, and that could cure everyone. But if you think about that, that all comes from a plant that you need to utilize, a certain plant. Then you collect the data. And as you collect the data, you're going to sequence the data. Either you do protein, you do the DNA, or you do the RNA, it doesn't matter. And then you get this whole data that now you need to explain, you need to analyze it and see, would really this compound work for me? would this plant that I plant here be good, productive, and I can produce more and more and be profitable? So then that spice of the space of genomics, it's actually now feeding into our space to say, how do we analyze this data? Then you become a bioinformatics. You're analyzing all this data. We're collecting all this. So we plant spinach, we plant tomato. You go, you look at the phenotypic. How does it do if I water it once a day? How does it do if I water it twice a day? I collect all this data. And who has to analyze it? Somebody has to analyze that data. So as you analyze this data, it's in the space of bioinformatics. So all these careers comes in, whether you want to be a botanist, whether you want to be a zoologist, whether you want to be just an agricultural scientist where you look at the crop production. If you look at so many crops within South Africa, I mean, we eat moroho almost every day. Right? You go to China now, you go to Korea, moroho is everywhere in their plates. That's healthy. We should actually conquer diabetes. We should conquer high blood pressure. And also maybe the issues of cancer, because sometimes it's because of how the lifestyle that we are eating, isn't it? So that's where agriculture play an important role. And that's where the young generations needs to think out of the box to say, this is my nation. This is where I see I'm growing. I can see we don't have tomatoes. But do we have to wait for SPA to sell us the tomatoes? No. Help your grandmother or help your mom to plant it in the backyard. Let's take it from there. Let's make it a value chain.
On this topic, we often hear about genetically modified foods. Are they good for us? Are they bad for us? Because it sounds like this is the area. And where is UNISA standing? Are we creating proper food at the farm, or what's happening?
Why don't we go to organics? I mean, let's
That's
go to
what I'm
origins.
saying, exactly.
Do we really need to? I mean, I always say, so you know, it's so funny because, well, I'm in the space of genetics. I always embrace the organic food. And I always said, it's not about every time the GMO food. Remember, I'll tell you, like, my VC and I sometimes we're talking about bringing the maize, the indigenous maize in South Africa. And because we no longer have that, because we're using now mostly the hybrids, the GMOs, because that's how we decided to opt
from overseas.
Exactly. It's not even our company. So it's the seeds that we have to import and all that, and it becomes very expensive. But let's go back to basics. Our grandmothers, our grandfathers, they were planting normal maize. You find a yellow maize at home, isn't it?
Yes.
And it was easy. They will mill it. They will make for us to do the porridge or the pap or whatever that you can call it. And it was so easy. So why can't we go to the origin? Because we can still do that. But when we talk about genetics, it's not always about manipulating it.
Okay.
It's all about I want to improve.
Okay.
So here is us. We decided today we're going to start to plant, let's plant potatoes. And no, potatoes is not really from here. Let's get something that's like amaranth.
Okay.
There's a lot of amaranth. So
Okay.
you decided, because amaranth are so nutritious, let's decide to have a farm and do that. And we say, let's stick with organic, but we want to improve it. We don't want amaranth to grow for a longer period. We want it to grow for a shorter period so that we can harvest it easy and enhance our market, isn't it? So we look at genetics pathways and say, how do we make sure that it grows faster without manipulating any genes, without manipulating anything? All you do, that's why I was saying that, you look at the condition, the season, you look at your water, how you're watering it, how you shaded that place, and then how it grows, and then you keep on recording the environment, because environment needs to be conducible. So you look at the environment and you collect all these phenotypes, and you're like, I'm thinking that instead of planting this in October, I'm going to plant it in November. It's going to give me 3 weeks period, because that time it's raining, it needs more rain, it needs that. You get my point?
Yes.
So genetic is how do we select better, but not exactly only how to modify it. We can modify it if we want to, but we can still stick with what we have. We just need to improve.
Okay. I always find that topic very tricky.
Exactly.
Right?
Everybody is so worried about it, or what next are we going to eat? And that's interesting. I mean, now you can have in the lab, in a Petri dish, and grow anything. And it can be, I was looking at the good experiments in mushrooms, and they grow them very well in the lab.
Nkosi yami yasizoshona, guys.
No, you see, the technologies are there. But does the technology displace our indigenous foods? No, it doesn't. What we just need to do is the knowledge. How do we grow it? And how do we improve it? How do we become better? But not to displace them. So we don't really need to displace what we have. If the maize that we have, it's healthy, and it won't make us to gain weight, that's okay. Let's improve from there. If we really want to look at the sweet corn, we want to look at the sweet potatoes, and we want to really improve in terms of the vegetables that we have. You know, now at UNISA in the farm, if you come in January, you'll see us, we're going to plant millet. Millet was a very good staple food that we used in South Africa. And many years people do that, and very healthy. You won't gain weight, you won't be an obese if you're eating millet, isn't it? But the thing is, we moved away because why? The way how it gets to be planted, and when the maize comes in and all that, everything changed. And rice comes in, and then it immediately, it displays the millet, isn't it? But if you're to think about it, if our porridge every day were millet, imagine how healthy we're going to be. So it's just going back to basics. So UNISA, we are saying, let's replant our own indigenous millet. Let's breed it properly, and let's allow farmers to be able to go back and breed this, and let's create a market pathways so that they can easily sell it, because there are people who want to use that, isn't it? But because the space, the market, it's not open that much, because it's always as like they're not important crops. So that is why nobody really mostly pay attention. They're planted in a very small scale, but there are products in the market that are very healthy. That is why when you go to buy those products are very expensive. But imagine if we were to open it up, the millet. Imagine how, in terms of all these diseases that we're talking about, things will change for us. And imagine if we go back to the yellow maize that we talked about, that not exactly yellow maize, it could be white, but it's indigenous maize that we have in South Africa. Imagine how best in all this rural area where it's drought most of the time, where there's no rain, because those plants, those maize plants, by that time, it could do well in drought. But because now we have only taken the GMOs or the exotic species that are not suitable for our environment, that becomes so difficult for us to plant that, for them to survive. So what we are saying in the space of agriculture, how do we improve our own agriculture, but also improving our own indigenous crops, our own indigenous livestock? Making sure that we select them better, making sure that we train our farmers properly. And this is where we are saying in that farm, we're going to have a training model that we train the communal farmers, the smallholder farmers, and also the commercial farmers that are still also struggling. How best do we bring the technologies, and we say, you can plant this way, and you don't have to wait for this season. You can do it this way, and it would work for you. And then how do we then have young scientists and young academics who are graduating starting to like agriculture? We want to provide 100 hectare for the entrepreneurship within the farm for UNISA students as they graduate, so that if you did very well, we give you a startup. And then we said, come start here. We show you, we train you how to do agriculture. We teach you how to be a farmer, how to plant very well. And then we give you this seed fund. And then you produce, you take that profit that you make yourself, and then we negotiate with the government, with any other community, so that you get the land, and then you can move forward. That is the only way how best we can create agriculture space that is easier and flexible for everybody, and we can grow better. So I just wish if youngsters can start to understand, it's not just about engineering. I love engineering. And it's a good thing. I mean, we need agriculture engineer, by the way, in the farm also. And also within UNISA, we're coming up with the qualification in agriculture engineering. So we need that. So, but as we need medical staff, as we need engineers, as we need ICT, we need also agricultural scientists that would help us to grow this. And the Department of Agriculture, it's really coming up to say, how do we work hand in hand? You go to AgriCita, these entities, or the Agricultural Research Council, they're coming together. When we're having a round table discussion on Monday, the discussion was, how do we work together? How is the university take these problems and make it as a research that is easy to be disseminated down? And we're able to really practically use that environment. So that's where, as UNISA, we're going.
Oh, it's beautiful, so inspiring. So now you said the farm is running.
Yes.
Can we zone in on that now? What exactly are you doing on the farm? How many students do you have? How does it work? How can people apply?
So what we're doing now within the farm, so we bought the farm as it was a farm, it was not really fully commercial farm, but it was functional. So we make it more functional because we bought it last year, September. So, farming is not an easy thing.
Yes.
You don't just go immediately,
Yes,
it's going.
yes.
So we bought it last year in September, but can I tell you, we immediately planted. We immediately planted about 260, 70 hectares. And out of that, we planted soya and we planted maize. It did very well. We even sold the animals. We have, when we bought the farm, we had about 300 cattle. By April, May, we were sitting at a 360 cattle. The university just sold out 51 cattle on auction a few months ago.
Wow.
And we have a Bonswara breed in that, so it's doing very well in terms of the animal production. So what we have been doing with that, so the farm, it aimed to actually cut across most of the catalytic niche areas of UNISA, especially the natural science and biotechnology space. So what we are doing there, we want to engage in terms of training. As I said, we want to train our students, but also the smallholder farmers. And then we've been training our students. Actually, if I said this year, we have already trained more than 300 students in that farm. So that is how quick as we are moving into that. So students go for practical. They utilize the animals to really check. You have sometimes go behind the animal, put your hand in the animal and do all the necessary. We have the animal health students. So the animal health students, they do all the diagnostics. They all check and the health of the animals, body condition scores, and things like that. You see, we also have sheep. We have about 21 sheep. So they also utilize the sheep, and it's merino sheep, so you can look at the wool, you can also check the condition of the sheep and all that. And then on the other hand, we have plant students, the crop science students. The crop science students, they go, they look at the quality of the soya, the soil that we have, the moist that we have. Now we're moving into precision agriculture. We even now within a farm, we bought a combine harvester. It's a digital combine harvester, so it's a high-tech combine harvester. So it gives you the data. So as you're harvesting, it tells you exactly the amount and the quality and all that. So which is then it helps the students to collect the data and then be able to analyze the data for their own project. So that those are the things that we are already doing. But how we are going to establish this whole farm going forward, because it's a period of 5 years.
Yeah.
So we want within these 5 years to really fully develop the farm. The farm is going to focus on the food production in terms of how do we train our farmers, how do we train our students, and then training will be the main core of that. And also research will be the main core. So what we are doing, we're bringing in dairy unit, we're bringing in the feedlot, we're bringing in the greenhouse. These are the things that in the coming 6 months we'll be putting together, and then so that the farm starts to be fully functioned. But on the other hand, what we are doing is also to bring in the good innovation hub within UNISA, where you find labs. You would be talking to us about our colleagues about the drug discoveries and the medicinal plants and all that. Most of those things will be done within the farm, because we're going to have proper labs that are handling that and handling the research. So this research, it's supposed to help you from when you started to plant, how you collect the data, Is it a good data that you're collecting? It goes to the lab with your sample, you analyze that, and then it goes out worldwide. So those are the things that we are doing. So when you come very soon in the lab, you're going to see the labs also, and then you're going to be seeing, we are also planting some herbs. So we started to plant some herbs. So soon, in the next 3 weeks or so, we'll be starting to say, yeah, when you are here, here's our herbs that we are planting at UNISA. And we want to research on it and how best. You know that UNISA has a flower.
No.
Yes, UNISA has a rose. We developed that rose years ago when we have the 150 years. Mabato. It's a rose.
Hi, guys.
So soon when you come to UNISA, you're going to see us producing more of those roses in the farm also. Yeah.
So now, because we're Africans and there's immunity, are you working closely with the traditional healers then also? Unpack for us.
So UNISA have the KPA on, or let me call it the priorities, key priorities of the universities that we have. Community engagement is one of that. So community engagement, it leads us to go to talk to the community. So what we've been doing here in Gauteng is to meet with the traditional healers. And then within that community, we would have like a garden where you get indigenous plants that are medicinal. So we have been doing that over the years. We worked with Tshwane University of Technology. We went with the University of Pretoria. Together with UNISA, we're doing this with the community. And UNISA has been actually on the forefront in terms of going and making sure that these plants are conserved. So we propagate them, we teach our students with that plant, with the traditional healers. Then we look at the chemical compounds. So the traditional healers come up with the idea, how are they extracting this? And we bring the professional part. How do you do that professionally? And they have their own cosmetics that they have patent, it's licensed, it's there in the market. So UNISA, that's why I was saying that even the Amarula juice, in Mpumalanga, we have so many communities now. They're focusing directly in how best do they produce the amarula juice that could be actually be useful around. And think if we put a plant in that community, they could have this facility that they're producing at a higher scale, selling it internationally. You go to China in the rural village, you find the whole village has like a co-ops. These corporate services, and what they do, they work together, they bulk everything of the products that they do, and they promote marketing overseas. And instead of us using TikToks for jokes and whatever, they use TikToks for marketing. So actually you can bid your whole product in the TikTok and said, this is the price, you guys, how do you think? Then you promote that product in there. This is what we have to start to do with our own products here in South Africa. So that's why I'm saying UNISA is in that space of how do we build South Africa? How do we build Africa? Because it's a university that it's an open for everyone. How do we build this world that we are in? And as Africans, what role can we play as the university? And that's when we are saying, agriculture should never be a burden for us. Agriculture should be something that we excel. We should be teaching all these other continents that they don't have space like us, to be able to show them that you can plant this, you can do this within 2 weeks. And definitely we can do that at a higher scale. So what we are saying is that, do we have enough training? And that's why we're saying we want to provide this training. But for us to do that, we have to work hand in hand with the industry. Because if you don't understand the farming community, you don't understand your industry, it's going to be difficult to take this education here. This person will graduate but won't fit in. So you want a graduate that automatically fits into this space.
You're so brilliant, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was so insightful. We really appreciate it.
We're looking forward to see you in the farm.
We are coming to the farm, and thank you for taking the time. I know you're a very busy woman.
Thank you so much.
MOYA Ulight, MOYA Ubright. There we gave you the Deputy Dean of Agriculture at UNISA. Guys, research, as you can see, UNISA has reached a point where they are just on a victory lap and doing the right things. All the kids that went to white schools are now in management and things are moving. So umoya ulight, umoya ubright. See you again next time.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into e off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.